Okay. We'd all like to welcome Rupanuga back to Fiji. Unfortunately, he's migrating. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunnavi Hari Paramahansa Paramahansa also such as Shima, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Sharya Slava Ki Jai. Friends say, Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha, Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakavana, Shyama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Gopada Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Achuranam Ki Jai, Jagadasami Ki Jai, Manamai Ki Jai, Shivanagalasadeva Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ram Krishna Padaya, Krishna Mastaya, Putlays, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami, Divine Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gaurvani Pajani, Nivasesha Shrivati, Paschatya Deja Tarni. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam today, first canto, second chapter, text 33. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Asau Gunamayar Bhavayar Buddha Sushvendriyatma Swa Anirmiteshu Nirvishto Bhumte Bhuteshu Tad Gunan Asogunamayar Bhavagir Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmapi Swanirmiteshu Nirvishto Bhumte Bhuteshu Tad Gunan Asogunamayar Bhavayar Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmapi Swanirmiteshu Nirvishto Bhumte Bhuteshu Tatgunan Asogunamayar Bhavayar Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmapi Swanirmiteshu Nirvishto Bhumte Bhuteshu Tatgunan. Okay. Ladies? Okay. Asau Tat Paramatma Gunamaya, influenced by the modes of nature. Bhavai, naturally. Bhuta, created. Sukshma, subtle. Indriya, senses. Atmabihi, by the living beings. Svanimiteshu, in his own creation. Nirvishta, entering. Punkte, causes to enjoy. Bhuteshu, in the living entities. Tat guna, those modes of nature. So translation. The Supersoul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. So purport, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. There are 8,400,000 species of living beings, beginning from the highest intellectual being, Brahma, down to the insignificant ant. And all of them are enjoying the material world according to the desires of the subtle mind and gross material body. The gross material body is based on the conditions of the subtle mind, and the senses are created according to the desire of the living being. The Lord as Paramatma helps the living being to get material happiness because the living being is helpless in all respects in obtaining what he desires. He proposes, and the Lord disposes. In another sense, the living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord. They are therefore one with the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living beings in all varieties of bodies have been claimed by the Lord as His sons. The sufferings and enjoyments of the sons are indirectly the sufferings and enjoyments of the Father. Still, the Father is not in any way affected directly by the suffering and enjoyment of the sons. He is so kind that He constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma and always try to convert the living being towards the real happiness. So again, Aso Guramaye Brahmar Bhutasatmendriyatmavi Swanirvateshu Nirvishto Bhunte Bhuteshu Tadgunam Somaganatibadandesha Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, very interesting here. This verse indicates that our enjoyment of particular sense objects is dependent upon the modes of nature that are affecting us. Of course, there's really gross examples, like Srila Prabhupada gives, like the pig is enjoying, I hate to mention it, is enjoying stool, and the human being is enjoying sweet rice. Was hopefully offered to Krishna. So, but the enjoyment, let's forget about it being prasad at the sweet rice. Let's say sweet rice without being prasad. So the enjoyment is equal. is equal because it's dependent upon the condition of the mind. And that reminds me of a story told by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and this is not involving pigs, this is involving human beings. He told the story one time his disciples were up in Korea. Some of you may have heard of the country Korea. And they were preaching, trying to preach Krishna consciousness. And the people there, they were very accustomed to eating and drinking disgusting things. In fact, they had one preparation they used to call liquid dog. And I hate to say this before prasadam, but anyway, what it was is they would take all the animals that died in the street or anywhere, like rats, dogs, whatever, cockroaches, and put them all into one container and let the container ferment. And then they would take off some of the water and after a year and put it in bottles and sell it. It's called liquid dog. And the devotees, of course, they said every time one of those containers top, the lid, was opened up, then they could hardly breathe, they could hardly exist because it was such a bad smell. And so then they said that, but when they cooked with ghee, everybody else, all the other people there, not the devotees, they complained that that was a bad smell. They said, oh, what's that horrible smell of cooking with ghee? Actually, Prabhupada said, for the deities, all the cooking should be with ghee. That's another subject matter I don't want to get into right now. But, so you see, like, everyone's taste is different. Of course, the tastes are different according to the combination of the modes of nature. And even with things that human beings eat, let's say here in Fiji, we see, of course no one's here is eating liquid dog or anything like that. We see that there are varieties of food in different modes of nature. And the Bhagavad Gita describes this, that some people here in Fiji like food that is tasteless, stale, decomposed, putrid, things like meat. And just like sometimes when you're driving to a dinner program or a breakfast program, and they have all these fish hanging there. And it's just like such a horrible thing. It's in the mode of ignorance that people really like that smell, that taste. And then you have people who like food in the mode of passion, some of you, like a really hot garam masala, a lot of chilies, too spicy, too much salt. But sometimes I say to the devotees here, you should put some sabji in your salt preparation. You understand? And then the devotees, they come and they say, I have high blood pressure, Maharaj. Doctors, and they go, high blood pressure. You say, how much salt are you taking? Well, just like 50 grams a day. It's lucky that blood is not burst out of the top of their heads by this time. And they're having strokes. Anyway, so that's food in the mode of passion. And then food in the mode of goodness is healthy, and it puts flesh on the body, and helps you think clearly like that. So, even, as devotees, we like or are attracted to different foods and different modes of nature. And so, basically, we should be working on getting foods in the mode of goodness. The reason for that, because that also will bring the mind to the mode of goodness. So whatever sense objects you're attracted to in this world, in whatever modes of nature, whether it's food, whether it's cars, some people are attracted to race cars and things like that, whether that's passion, whether it's whatever it is, whatever fun you're doing, then that affects the consciousness So we should be cultivating continually the mode of goodness and be attracted to the mode of goodness, sense objects. And you may say, how can you do this? How can you can condition the mind. The mind can be controlled by the intelligence. It's not that you have to give it to the mind. And the more you condition the mind to do what you want, then the more you will function on the spiritual platform. And then the more, ultimately, you will perceive the super soul. As Bhagavad Gita says, one who's controlled the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. So before that, before attaining the super soul, attaining tranquility, it's necessary to approach the super soul's representative, the external manifestation of the super soul, who is the spiritual master. So, Tad Viganartam Sadhu Eva Abhigachet. It is essential, according to the Vedic literatures. But also, in order to approach a bona fide spiritual master, one has to know who is a bona fide spiritual master. The Prabhupada sometimes gave the example that if one is looking for gold, one can actually be cheated. There's this thing called fool's gold, which is pyrite, which looks just like gold to the ordinary person's eyes. And then one will take that as being gold, and one will waste his money. So in the same way, there is also fool's spiritual masters, or spiritual masters for fools, whatever. Or there are bona fide spiritual masters. And Prabhupada, another example, I was listening to a class this morning. Prabhupada said, like, if you want to go and find a doctor, you don't go to the auto mechanic shop. That's not the place to find a doctor. So at least you have to have some preliminary introductory knowledge in order to look for a guru. And of course that knowledge is given in the Vedic literatures. Again, Samid Pani Shrotriam Brahmanishtam. What does that mean? One has to find someone who is a Samid Pani, someone who is a servant of his spiritual master. That means not only one who is serving, but one who identifies himself as a servant, and one who is following the spiritual master in disciplic succession. So Samit Pani Shrotriam means one who has heard nicely from the spiritual master and is able to repeat nicely. Because hearing, as we were mentioning the other day, hearing is the most essential item in devotional service. All the other processes of devotional service, such as Kirtanam, Smaranam, Arjanam, Bhagavan, Sakras, Admani Vedanam, Dasham, they're all dependent upon hearing. So one must have heard from his spiritual master and be able to repeat. And then the final quality listed is Brahmanishtam. That means someone who is nishta, or steady 24/7, and serving the Supreme Personality of God and serving his spiritual master. And if one approaches such a spiritual master, one will actually get the proper directions from the super soul. So then the question arises, well, what happens if the spiritual master is not present? Either the spiritual master passes away, or the spiritual master is in a different place in the world. Do I need to be sending my spiritual master text messages each and every time I make a decision in life? This would be, it'd be abusive. If that would happen, I would actually turn on my internet permanently when people were doing that. The question arises what to do, and that's answered in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where you have Malaya Dwaja, the queen, whose husband has passed away. So her husband, metaphorically, represents the Guru. And so she's crying, which is the proper mood to have when the Guru passes away, or when it's not with the Guru. So she's crying, and then Prabhupada mentions in the purport that if one is dedicated to the mission of the spiritual master, then the super soul or Krishna appears to one. So this is the secret in spiritual life. The Prabhupada says it's the secret in spiritual life, not running around Vrindavan looking for Krishna under every bush. Of course, the Goswamis in Vrindavan did this, but because they were actually on that level. Hey Rad, hey Braja, Devake, hey Shuno, Nanda Shuno Kuta. That means, oh Radharani, oh Krishna, Nanda Shuno Kuta, where are you? So, Prabhupada said that this is the method for achieving Krishna consciousness, to be focused on the mission of the spiritual master. We talked about this yesterday, of course, too. So, for all of us in the Krishna consciousness movement, we have the mission, whoever our spiritual master is, our mission is Prabhupada's mission. Because the mission of our spiritual master is Prabhupada's mission. Because that's the difference between the spiritual master and the founder Acharya. Very important to understand that distinction. The founder Acharya is the one who sets the mission for everybody else, who everybody else is the servant of. And so, regardless of our spiritual master, if we are actually thinking, planning how to expand and serve Prabhupada's mission, then we actually come in touch with the Super Soul. In fact, Srila Prabhupada in the Upadeshamrita, that means the Nectar of Instruction by Srila Goswami, Prabhupada points out, when he's talking about the 3 different stages of devotion of devotees, that is, Kanishta Adhikari, Majjhima Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari, Prabhupada gives a very functional definition. You know, normally we hear the definition of Kanishta, Majjhima, Uttama. In terms of Kanishta, he just worships the temple, deities of the temple, and doesn't see living entities in everyone's heart. He doesn't have firm faith. Majjhima has firm faith, but he doesn't know the scriptures that well. And then Uttama knows the scriptures perfectly. He's always thinking of Krishna, and obviously he has full faith. But Prabhupada gives a completely different functional definition of Uttama Adhikari in the Nectar of Instruction. He says an Uttama Adhikari is one who, first of all, never falls down. That's Nishtha again. Just like we were talking about the 3 qualities of bona fide Guru, Samitpani Shrocham, Ramanishna. He never falls down, and he's always thinking of the mission or spreading Krishna consciousness. That's it's called a functional definition. Instead of like what we call an ontological definition, describing a person's qualities, then it's a definition in terms of a person's actions and consciousness. So, what does that mean for us? That we should try to look for, so yes, we should try to see and take shelter of those who are always thinking of carrying out the mission and bringing more people to Krishna. That's true. But also, as far as our own Krishna consciousness, we should be thinking and planning bring more people to Krishna consciousness. I mentioned yesterday, my motto, or the motto we should have, is more devotees and happier devotees. And that's the reason for all of the different strategies that we may employ. You know, we have so many different strategies. We have prasadam distribution, we have harinam, we have temple construction, so many different things. We have, book distribution, sorry, I missed that one, which is perhaps one of the most important. Book distribution, but all of them come together with the purpose. Oftentimes we don't think of the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. In philosophy, the study of purposes is called teleology. We don't consider the why factor. In fact, that's often why we don't have an enthusiasm, because we just do things niyamagraha, ritualistically. And we don't think, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why are you going out in book distribution? Why are you opening up a temple? Why are we worshiping the deity? Krishna doesn't need our worship. Krishna doesn't need to come down here to Suva. He has plenty of Lakshmis in the spiritual world who can cook a hell of a lot better than we can. And there's no potatoes in the spiritual world. Sorry about that one. So, everything is cooked in ghee in the spiritual world. And nobody gets sick. So, why does Krishna have to come down? He doesn't have to. So. Why does Krishna come down? He comes down for more devotees, happier devotees, to bring people, to attract people to Krishna consciousness. That's why Krishna comes down. And the purpose of Krishna's incarnation, same thing. He comes down for that purpose. Why is the Paramatma manifest in everyone's heart? For his compassion. To help us realize, after we try to enjoy, he allows us to have our free will to try to enjoy all the different aspects and tastes of this material world, so that ultimately we come back to him. Because when we get frustrated, what's the Paramatma waiting for? He's waiting for us to get frustrated with the enjoyment of this world after he's exposed us to 8,400,000 species of life, and all the different types of food and all those species of life, and waiting for us to cry out for help so he can send a bona fide spiritual master. Ramanda Brahmate Kondavaji Krishna Prasadavati Beach. That's what he's waiting for us to turn our face like two birds in a tree. One is eating the fruits and the other one is looking, waiting. Krishna's disappearing. So anyway, he's waiting for us to turn our face towards him and say, Krishna, help. And then Krishna, Brahmanda, Brahmate, Kondavadavaji, Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhai Bhakti Lata Beach. Krishna sends Guru. Guru gives us Bhakti Lata Beach, which we cultivate by the hearing and chanting process. So anyway, so we always remembering why we're doing things specifically. We're doing things as part of the mission of Srila Prabhupada. The movement. Movement means to move. It's interesting that Prabhupada never called the Hare Krishna movement the Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna organization. It might be said organization once or twice. But basically, he termed it movement because he wanted it to move. Prabhupada was dynamic, not static. Prabhupada said, we don't want the sit-down devotees, we want devotees, fighters like Arjuna. Not fighters with each other, of course. We don't need that kind of fighter, not like Duryodhana company. But fighters like Arjuna. So Prabhupada said, and Prabhupada, even in his final days, he said to the devotees who were trying to hold him back, and Prabhupada was just skin and bones, and they were trying to hold him back, and Prabhupada said, give me the benediction of dying on the battlefield. So it's not that we need to go out there on the battlefield, but whatever we do should be focused on that point of bringing people Prabhupada's mission. And then if we're focused on that point, then the super soul actually will manifest for us and we'll get proper direction. Because why? Because our motivation will be pure. As we mentioned before, one of the first classes we gave about the super soul, not that sprinter, got him a point on the chart. He's giving intelligence, remembrance, and forgetfulness according to our desire. According to your desire, you're getting intelligence, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So if you're desiring to spread Krishna consciousness, to carry out Prabhupada's mission, Krishna will give you intelligence. There's so many verses that verify this. Krishna will give you intelligence how to do this. Actually, my godbrother, Vaisheshika, he has this interesting saying, where attention goes, energy flows. So if you put your attention, your intention, and attention on something, then your energy, intelligence, super soul will manifest before you. And then you become Krishna conscious. That's a secret. And it will work. Simple like that. Of course, you have to change your 16 rounds, follow 4 regular principles, but then also, always you should be thinking of the why factor. Why am I chanting 16 rounds? Why am I following the 4 regular principles? What do I want? What's the purpose of my life? Not simply, I'm doing this because I'm supposed to, because I have to, I promise. That's good, but not simply because of that. It should be, here's the purpose, to carry out this great mission. And people wonder why the movement spread so quickly in the beginning days of Krishna consciousness. Amongst, Americans who didn't know anything about Krishna consciousness. They didn't even know to hold the beads in their right hands. What to speak of other things. The reason is because that mood was there. More devotees, happier devotees, more temples. I remember when I first joined the movement, after 6 months in the movement, I was opening up a new temple. It was dynamic. And that was Prabhupada's mission, mood. And that's why the movement spread so rapidly in the 11 years while Prabhupada was active in preaching Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada came to America in 65, didn't start really getting any success until 66, and left in 77. So that's 11 years right there. So can you imagine, within that space of time, 108 temples. Of course, we had the temples in Fiji was here, Lotoko was there. All that from zero, basically from 0 to 100 in 11 years. With no assets, Prabhupada had no money in the beginning, at least his rupees he couldn't change. And in 11 years, it's just like, boom, because people had that mood. Back to home, back to God. I remember we would go on Sankirtan. One of the first mantras in Harinam, we would chant, back to home, back to Godhead. Can you imagine that? That was the mood. Yeah, back to home, back to Godhead. And, such enthusiasm. Enthusiasm comes from mission focus. So, any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Gumraj, for the powerful and enlightening lecture. Of course, you really focused on the why factor and the mission of Prabhupada. So, and you also mentioned about the strategy.
Steadiness.
We should be
Nishta.
different strategies. So for us to reach to the indigenous community, indigenous people, what are some of the strategies we should employ?
Well, first of all, you should be focused on it. I mean, if you want to preach to indigenous people, that's an interesting expression, indigenous. So if you want to preach to, then you have to put your attention to it. Like a Vaisheshika Prabhu said, where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're attentive and thinking of it and praying to Krishna, Krishna will give you intelligence on how to do it. And it will require intelligence because the same strategies don't work for every type of person when spreading Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada gave that example of different rituals that are applicable in India, and he says they're not applicable in the Western world. You know, there's many rituals that they follow in India that really won't work here, because this is also the Western world to a certain extent. So we should try to adapt things according to the culture. Just like in China, the devotees are very successfully preaching, and they're using Chinese instruments and Chinese music, Chinese dress, and all sorts of elements of Chinese culture. But they're getting people to chant Hare Krishna. And so many new devotees are taking initiation in China. And China is such an interesting country that there's no word in China for God. You know, there's no conception, because when you think in terms of the words, your language, isn't it? But there's no concept of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or who God is or anything like that. So it's much easier to preach to those who are, I hate to use that word, indigenous. Anyway, the residents here were here before the Indians came. How about using that? Because otherwise it gets really racial. I mean, I hate to be racial like that. So, the people with the village culture people. Okay, let's use that. People, because the point is, you're thinking, there's also amongst the native Fijians, there's people who are more educated, and then people just living in the village drinking their kava every day. So there's a different methodology for approaching those people. So you have to, so it should be easy because they all believe in God. Isn't it? I mean, practically every native Fijian, they believe in God, and they have a strong belief in God. That's better than the Indians. 90% of the Indians, they just like it hodgepodge. When you go into a temple, it's just like the gods. Which one is God? They all are. I am. You are. Yeah, then put a picture of your wife on the altar. She's your God. So, right? So, I mean, I would say it's a lot easier to preach in one sense if you can adapt things to the natives, indigenous, whatever, because they have firm belief in God. So it's how you describe God, what instruments you use. I mean, my experience is if many times I played a guitar for the native Fijians, and they love it when you start chanting. So, you may have to hold back a little bit on the philosophy in the beginning and just have prasadam. And so you have to adjust the strategy. But Krishna will give you the intelligence. But the same strategy that you use for the Indian community should not be used for the native Fijians. It's just not going to work like that. It's just not going to work. Everybody's different. Prabhupada didn't use the same strategy for the Americans. With the Americans, he said, because they were into drug culture, he said, chant Hare Krishna and stay high forever. What does that mean? That's a drug expression. stay high forever. So Prabhupada he adjusted things according to time, place, and circumstance.
And
What?
our experience with the Fijian people is that they are very friendly, and as you mentioned, that they have a lot of faith in
God.
and faith in God, and they are very devoted in the churches. During the Easter, as part of our interfaith program, during the Easter weekend, I went to 2 churches just to attend the Easter program, and I found them that their programs very disciplined, and their singing is very melodious singing, and they're all focused on the discourse, and as you mentioned, Guru Maharaj, very easy. So I personally have been exploring that with some of our devotees. Dr. Shravaniya Mataji, she also does a lot of outreach programs, and she's the divisional mentor of the Reva province, and she has a lot of contacts with the Fijian people. So I think it's high time that we really seriously think about reaching out to our Fijian brothers and sisters.
Yeah, so it may require different programs. In other words, because, like you mentioned, in the Fijian religious ceremonies, they're very focused, they chant in tune, whereas, in our ceremonies, we're not focused, we don't chant in tune, and the musicians aren't trained up. Isn't it? Like if you go to a Fijian church, these people are rehearsing, isn't it? And it's beautiful. I mean, their music is just like really melodious. They're using harmonies. I'm not saying that we should do that. But we should do that if we're going to attract the Fijians. Because they're naturally musicians. They're naturally good. They're naturally very good musicians, from what I've heard. Whereas many members of the Indian community, they really can't hold the tune. Sorry if I'm not offending anyone here, but it's just my own observation after so many years. So, I mean, and so, sometimes people think the louder you play, in our community, the louder you play, the more ecstatic the kirtan is. I mean, I was just watching the kirtan, and this is actually even in America. The devotees were screaming into the microphone. Screaming. And they thought, this is ecstatic kirtan. And that's in America. So that the Fijians won't think like that. They won't think that. They'll think the person's just screaming. So we got to adjust perhaps the style of, I'm just giving you a hint. You have to adjust the style of chanting, the food, the different types of food. I'm not saying we have to cook fish, but different things that they like to eat. And the type of music they like to listen to, and then they'll be attracted. Because Krishna consciousness is all attractive to everyone, and it's just up to us to package it in the right way. Okay, I guess that's it. Because we have a program today, it looks like we have a fire sacrifice and some initiation. So thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.